Welcome back. All right, we're up to WrestleMania 12 as I continue to look through the WrestleManias. And WrestleMania 12 is a very interesting one because we're almost to the Attitude Era. You're starting to see some Attitude-ish stuff coming in here. And there's some cringe. There's definitely some cringe in this event. WrestleMania 12 had it is that go. It's one of those go between events of not really like the previous and not like what is about to come. Right, WrestleMania 17. Once I get there, believe me, 17 is still my. I think it's still my favorite. But WrestleMania 12 had some good moments. It absolutely did. In fact, it starts with a final match in a tournament to crown tag champions. The Body Donnas, managed by Sonny, defeated the Godwins for the vacant tag titles. That took 5 minutes and 22 seconds. I did think that Skip and Zip were terrible names, but I thought the Body Donnas were a good tag team. And the Godwins, I thought were better as heels than faces, but I did think this was fine. There was a good tag division in WWF at the time. WWF's tag division has always been very ebb and flow. Sometimes you have a bunch of really good teams, and then there's other times where you might have four that you see as legitimate contenders, and then the other ones are kind of just thrown together. And then a no contest between the Huckster and the Nacho Man. And Billionaire Ted was the special guest referee. WWF was not happy about Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage cutting ties and running off to WCW. So Vince McMahon wanted to embarrass them, wanted to portray them as being just too old to be wrestlers. And so you had the Huckster and the Nacho Man, and the segments were, well, they were sophomorish. I never found it funny. I know some people did. I didn't think it was necessarily a big deal because we all knew WCW existed. I've always found it weird how one company won't mention the other on air because, you can't acknowledge the other one exists. Why not? Fans know it exists. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. Like when I'm watching now and you'll hear, well, this person's in here and they've won titles in AAA and NJPW and Noah. And meanwhile, it's the former AEW champion. And it's like, but that person won AEW. Why not just say they won an AEW title? It's not a huge deal to do so. But back then it was much the same. Where the WCW stuff, it was portrayed as these guys are old. They're giving you the matches you had before. And we're the new young stars. We have the new generation, right? Which worked-ish, although we know that NWO is going to form, and that's going to change the wrestling landscape when that happens. Then you have a six-man tag match, British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and Vader, defeating Ahmed Johnson, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Yokozuna. A trio I never remember being together. I'm being honest. This match goes 13 minutes and 8 seconds, and if this match had been won by the team of Ahmed Johnson, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Yokozuna, that would have meant 5 minutes in the ring for Yokozuna with Jim Cornette. So you knew that wasn't going to happen. Jim Cornette managing the team of British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and Vader. This is before we get into the Hart Foundation as a stable. And Bulldog and Owen doing some good work here. So WrestleMania 12 had a fun six-man tag match. I just don't remember Yokozuna being a face. I'm being completely honest. I don't remember. And looking at that, I'm thinking, I don't know that Yokozuna ever would have worked as a face anyways. I don't. Then Roddy Piper defeated Goldust. 16 minutes and 47 seconds for this match. It was a Hollywood backlot brawl, and they made a joke out of the O.J. Simpson Ford Bronco chase with the police. It was, looking back now, I don't know if it's more cringe or more poor taste or what it was. And it wasn't much of a match between Goldust and Roddy Piper. It was almost 17 minutes. The interesting thing is, I remember with Goldust, he came in. I didn't recognize him as Dustin Rhodes. When somebody pointed out in, I think it was a wrestling magazine I picked up, and they're like, Dustin Rhodes is Goldust. I'm like, oh my God, it is. How did I not notice? Because this is before the internet, so I had no idea. None. And then it was just weird. I was like, so is this like punishment, like what his dad had with the polka dots? But he sold the character well, and Roddy Piper beats him, and there you go. Stone Cold Steve Austin starting to get his footing. Steve Austin came in as $1 million man's champion. It didn't really work. It just didn't. So he became Stone Cold Steve Austin. Eventually, he gets away from DiBiase and becomes the wrestler that we all know now. But he defeated Savio Vega here by TKO at 10 minutes and 5 seconds, so technical knockout. And I thought Savio Vega was a good opponent for Austin. Austin's building himself up. At this point, though, I remember thinking that Austin was just kind of a mid-card guy. So at a certain point, Bret Hart decides he was out with injury, I think, for a while. And when he came back, he wanted to fight who he felt was the toughest wrestler in WWF, and that was Steve Austin. I remember thinking, Steve Austin generally hasn't been the toughest character. Bret Hart saw something well before a lot of the fans, I think, necessarily did. And, Stone Cold was definitely helped by Bret Hart and vice versa. Those two built each other up pretty nicely. Then a match that if you watched it now, you might get a chuckle out of it. It takes 1 minute and 39 seconds, not a lot of time out of your day. The Ultimate Warrior defeating Triple H. Triple H at the time, so the curtain call would happen, and Triple H really, really got punished for the curtain call. They couldn't punish Shawn Michaels, as has been said in the media, because Shawn Michaels was at the top of the card. Hunter wasn't. Hunter Hearst Helmsley was definitely not at the top of the card. In fact, his whole shtick, the whole spoiled brat kind of persona, I don't think it ever really clicked, because it didn't suit him. And then when he became the Hunter Hearst Helmsley that we would know, a couple of years down the road, he became this massive superstar in WWF. But yeah, Warrior came back and defeated him in 1 minute and 39 seconds. So WWF trying to push Warrior, and it ultimately didn't really work because Warrior was not reliable, and he was still not reliable. I remember him on Raw swearing in the ring and thinking, man, right now Vince's head's got to be blown up. Because you couldn't swear on the air back at that time, but he did. He did. A couple of times as I remember it. Then The Undertaker defeated Diesel at 16 minutes and 46 seconds. I was honestly surprised. I thought Diesel was going to end the streak. Because at this point, we didn't really talk about the streak. The streak gets mentioned more and more as the years go by, but at this point, it's just Undertaker's undefeated at Mania. That's cool. I thought Diesel might beat him. I did not consider that with Diesel going to WCW, that the WWF would have him lose in this situation. But I remember it being a good match. I enjoyed that match. And I thought it proved that, Diesel could wrestle a good match. Undertaker at this point still pretty good in the ring. And so it was a fun build to the main event, which was Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. This was an Iron Man match. There were no pins in the first hour. And the fact that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart went out there and wrestled for a whole hour, hating one another as much as they did, but they were professionals. There were no cheap shots. Nobody hurt the other guy. They went out there and they did their job. And this was simply amazing. This is why when I hear, this wrestler won't work with this wrestler, this is what I think back to when both Bret and Shawn were professionals. And so even though Shawn was, by his own admission, not a great person at this point in time, and he did politic a lot backstage, once the bell sounded in the ring, he was a total professional. And whoever Vince matched him up with, I don't remember him saying no. I do remember him losing his smile, yes. That was a controversy, and at some point in time, it would be fun for me to do career videos for wrestlers like I do for hockey players on the Hockey Channel. And I will do that, because Shawn Michaels would be a very interesting career video to do, in that he was just wildly controversial throughout his time at the top of the company. Now, Shawn Michaels defeats Bret Hart, and what always bothered me with this was that at the end of the 60 minutes, there wasn't a winner, so they restart, sudden death overtime, and it takes 1 minute and 56 seconds for Shawn Michaels to beat Bret. And of course, if you know the story, you would also know that Shawn got the title and then told Bret to get the F out of his ring, which Bret felt was really unprofessional. At the same time, if you watch almost any match where somebody wins the title, the opponent is out of the ring very quickly. They are gone very, very quickly. In fact, one of the things I'm always fascinated by is how these wrestlers work together. And with all the camera angles they have now, it's really easy to see it. It's really easy to see, oh yeah, they rolled out so that person can have their moment. Well, they rolled out because they had to pretend to be distracted because of what was coming, and they knew it was coming in the match. So Shawn won it. It was, I think, one of the best matches WWF ever put on. I know that some believe that it went on a little bit too long and that they kind of dogged it a little bit for the first half of the match and then really went for it the second half. But it's a full hour of wrestling. You can't go all out for a full hour. You're going to blow yourself up. And then you're going to be stuck with what? Rest holds and sleepers for the rest of the match. So it was a really solid event. And there were a lot of indications of what was to come. The Roddy Piper Goldust match, that was really what the Attitude Era was going to be. The Attitude Era is remembered for all the good stuff, but there was certainly a lot of stuff that was not great and was just corny or in bad taste, just for the sake of being in bad taste. Mark Henry stuff, right? So it is this balance that we're going to see with WWF that eventually makes way for the Attitude Era. As WCW takes Diesel, turns him into Kevin Nash. Of course, we have Kevin Nash and Scott Hall right in WCW. And Hulk Hogan's over there too. And all these big names, it really puts a lot of pressure on WWF. And we're getting into that era now. But there you go, WrestleMania 12. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. I would say, too, the after effect of the Shawn Michaels-Bret Hart match starts that slow turn for Bret Hart towards becoming a heel. But thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.